Okay, welcome everyone. As we learn the special segment known as For the Shabbos Table, sponsored by the Rubin family, a grant given by them so that the Rebbeinu Shalom should, they're giving it the Hagdil Torah L'Adira, but they asked the Rebbeinu Shalom they should be zeichet to a Ben Zachar, a healthy Ben Zachar, and also to have Atzlacha in Ruchnius and in Gashmius. So we're going to talk now about two of the more incredible people in the annals of Jewish history. Vayishoru shnei anoshim b'machaneh, and there remained two people in the camp, Shema Echad Eldad, v'Shema Sheni Meidad. One was called Eldad, one was called Meidad. V'tonach aleim Ruach, and the Spirit of Hashem rested upon them, the spirit of prophecy. V'heima baksuvim, but below yotzu ha'ohala, v'yisnabu b'machana. They were included in those that were written. They didn't go out to the tent with the rest of the Zakanim. Instead, they prophesied in the camp. So Rashi tells us what's going on over here. It's Gemara in Sanhedrin. Rashi tells us, Sanhedrin Yud Zayin, Rashi tells us that Hashem said to gather Shivim Zakanim, so there's 12 tribes. How do you choose fairly 70? Well, 12 times 5 is 60, and 12 times 6 is 72. So each tribe chose 6, and Moshe Rabbeinu did a lottery. On 70 of the papers, he wrote Zaken, and on 2, they left them blank. And therefore, the idea is that the ones that picked the blank, as Rashi says, that's a sign, Hamokam lo chafetz bach, you weren't desired to do this job. So what happened is that Eldad and Meidad didn't show up. Eldad and Meidad felt, as Rashi tells us, they weren't ruined, and they didn't come. Now the Tchelas Mordechai says that what happened is that they found 2 papers in the Kalpi weren't taken. And they opened them up, and they saw that in each one it says Zaken. So they summoned Eldad and Meidad. Obviously, they're the only ones that didn't come. And that means that they both were ru'uyin to be amongst the Zakanim. So they summoned them to come. So Eldad and Meidad said, well, now it's impossible for them to come. Because if they come, then 2 people will have to then confess that they were there wrongfully. And they would be embarrassed. Right? If they don't show up, so then I'm assuming the idea is if they don't show up, so then there's only 70. So that solves the problem. Right? How they accepted the group of 70, knowing that there were 2 people over there that, as Rashi says, that Hamokam lo chafetz bach, and also that they were shakranim, because they made like their piece of paper had zaken. You see, the other question, Hamokam lo chafetz bach, you could say, well, Hashem knew that Eldad and Meidad wouldn't come, so therefore these are the 70. But they lied. They stayed there. They didn't show that they had an empty parchment. Maybe you could say that they would have if the 2 would have shown up. But when they saw that it was only 70, they said, so then we could stay. But either way, it says that the Rebbeinu Shalom awarded them and said, because you don't want to embarrass people and because you felt unworthy, therefore, while the others of Canaan would not enter into Eretz Yisrael, they would enter into Eretz Yisrael, while they would have Arichas Yamim, and it would be that it would be the decision of Hashem that while the other Nevi'im prophesied through the conduit of Moshe Rabbeinu, they prophesied independently. They actually prophesied Moshe Meish, the Yeshua Machnes, and that's why Yeshua said, Adoni Moshe Kloim, Misnabim, the Baal Turim says, stands for Meis Nevi'im. The head of the Nevi'im is going to die. That's the meaning of Misnabim. And they would also, as the Targum Yonasim and Ziel says, they would also prophesy about Gog and Magog and how they would be destroyed, and the animals would eat their corpses, and then would come the Trias HaMeisim. Amazing prophecy from Eldad HaMeidad. As a matter of fact, when I started this year, I said how Eldad HaMeidad was so extraordinary. If you look at the Targum Sheni in Megillas Esther, where it talks about Shlomo HaMelech's throne, Achashverosh made a copy of Shlomo HaMelech's throne, and it was too heavy. That's why they made it in Shushan. That was why he moved his throne, his capital, to Shushan. So the Targum Sheni says that there was a menorah, a candelabra, and it had 7 branches to the right and 7 branches to the left. So he says that the 7 branches to the right are the Shiva Royim, are 7, the Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and whoever is considered the Shiva Royim, while he says on the left was another 7 branches, which were Levi, Kahas, Amram, Moshe, Aaron, and Eldad HaMeidad. Wow. It's amazing. We must know that Eldad HaMeidad's sensitivity to bring shame upon themselves as if they got the blank parchments is similar to what the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, that they wanted to intercalate the year. And the din is that Ein Ma'abrin es Hashana Ela Zumanim. So Rabbi Gamliel said, they can't intercalate the year except for people that were designated beforehand. So Rabbi Gamliel said, designate 7 people. When he came the next day, he found 8. So he says, who's here, that wasn't invited? So Shmuel HaKatan got up and said, it's me, and I didn't come up to intercalate the year. I came up only to learn the halacha l'maisa. So Rabbi Gamliel says, Shev b'nei Shev, you're worthy to intercalate the year anytime, but you need to have people that are predetermined. It's very likely Rabbi Gamliel also knew what was going on. Actually, Shmuel HaKatan was one of the guests, one of the invitees, but he didn't want to embarrass the one that came in without permission, so he admitted, and that's why he stayed, and that's why Gamliel let him stay, because the one that was invited couldn't be considered one of the 7. But again, you see that Shmuel HaKatan was ready to take the shame that he walked in uninvited in order not to embarrass someone else. And this is like the story that I told just last week of Reb Herschel. The Rebbe Reb Herschel, when he was a young man, he was engaged to a woman, the daughter of a great Nugget, and he came for the Ofruf, and he was in the house opposite his future Shver, and he saw from the window into the kitchen, and he happened to notice they had a large dough that they were taking a cup and preparing to make cutouts for cupcakes, and a chicken came and pecked all over the fresh, hard worked upon prepared dough. And his Kala saw the chicken and grabbed it, and in anger started banging it against the wall. And Reb Herschel paled and said, how could I marry a Kala with such a kas, with such an anger, with such an achzarias? But on the other hand, how could I break a shidduch, the Shabbos of the offer, if I can't embarrass Abbas Yisrael? So he went into the Beis HaMedrash, Erev Shabbos. It was full of serious people learning. before Shabbos, and surreptitiously he went to the pushka on the bima, and he made as if he was stealing money. And he was caught. And there was a cry, the chosin, he's not what he looks like. He's a ganef, he's a thief. So what happened? They broke the shidduch. So he took upon himself the reputation of a low thief in order not to embarrass this girl who he didn't want to marry because she was an Alzer and she had a kas. Now, who was Eldad Meidad? This is a fascinating discussion. Who was Eldad Meidad? And maybe we could trace where they had the power of such humility, of such prophecy. So there's a famous Targum Yonis Ben Uziel. The Targum Yonis Ben Uziel says that when Amram separated from Yocheved, because he said, why should we have children? They're getting killed. They're being thrown in the Nile. This is before Moshe Rabbeinu was born. That's when the Gzeira of being thrown in the Nile. So what happened is Yocheved went and she married Eltzaphan Bar Parnach after she separated from Amram. This is in the time of Yonis Ben Uziel. And she had twins. Now realize that when she had the twins, she was 129. This is right before she married, went back to Amram and had Moshe at 130. Right? So she was between 128 and 129 after she had Aaron, who was 3 years older than Moshe. So at 129, she gave birth to twins, Eldad and Meidad. And that explains, this is my pshat, but that explains beautifully the names Eldad and Meidad, because she nursed twins at 129. So Eldad to one breast, or Meidad, the other breast. She nursed with 2 breasts children at 129. It's a big miracle. We give a name after a miracle, like Eliezer, like Avi Bezri, the Atzaleni Mecher Paro. You'll ask, so then how did Amram take back Yocheved afterwards? It's Mazik Gushasal Achashinisis. That's not a problem because he was anyway, Yocheved was his aunt. You're not allowed to be married to your aunt, so it was before Matan Torah. But you'll ask another question. It says that Amram separated from his wife, and all of Klal Yisrael separated from their wives. And so that means that or at least all of Shevet Levi separated from their wives, but probably it's all of Klal Yisrael. So then his own wife defied him and married another man? What's going on? So there's a Tosfos. Tosfos says that Amram was not being mevatel the mitzvah d'oraisa perivarivia. Amram was saying, anyone like me, who already had a boy and a girl, that's the halacha, like Beis Hillel, the Yaitz perivarivia with a boy and a girl, and Amram already had Aaron and Miriam. Anyone like me, separate from your wife. Now, Eltzaphan Bar Parnach wasn't Mekayim Perivarivia, and since Yocheved saw she had a miraculous power to have children, she went ahead and married Eltzaphan Bar Parnach. That's what they had. They had Eldad and Meidad. They were twins. That's the way the Targum Yonis Ben Uziel learns. Comes along the Dazakain Balitaisus. And the Dazakain Balitaisus says that he found that Rebbe Hillel, who was from Eretz Yisrael, said that Ra'isi Kever, I saw a grave that has on the Matzeva Eldad or Meidad, and it wrote Eldad or Meidad. It was a double matzeva. The Shas Chuvas learn out from here that you could have a double matzeva. Eldad or Meidad Achi Aaron min ha'ov v'lo minayin. Ooh, the other way around. Eldad or Meidad, brothers of Aaron, paternal brothers of Aaron. They were both from Amram v'lo minayin, and not from Yocheved. So that means, explains the Dazakain and Balitaisus, that at Har Sinai, when Hashem said that you're not allowed to be married to your aunt, Amram separated from Yocheved, took another wife, and had Eldad and Meidad. And here he explains the etymology of Eldad and Medad differently. And that is, Eldad is Aldoid. You're not supposed to have, anymore a ant. Umedad, and from the ant. Therefore, he sent Yocheved away, and I guess naming the children was to show that it was Mesiras Nefesh to send away Yocheved. He's married to her, over 100 years probably. Over 100 years. He sends her away, so it's a big Kiddush Hashem, doing the mitzvahs Hashem, and he marries another woman, and from that woman he has Eldad and Medad. Now, it's a really, really difficult pshat. Why? Because that means that Amram lived all the way to Matan Torah. If Amram lived all the way to Matan Torah, why when Moshe Rabbeinu came back 80 years, why when Moshe Rabbeinu came back from Midian, why does he say he took over for Aaron? And V'ra'acha v'samach b'liba. If Amram was still alive, Amram should have been the Gadol Hador, not Aaron. Also, if he divorced Yocheved at Har Sinai, that means Yocheved had to be at least 211 years old, or 210 years old. Because she was already 130 at the birth of Moshe. Moshe was 80 when he left Mitzrayim. That's 210. So we don't find that Yocheved lived till 210 years old. There's another problem. And that is that if it's true that it happened when, after Har Sinai, so why does it say on the Matzeva, Eldad and Medad Achei Aaron? Why doesn't it say Achei Moshe? I mean, Aaron was the oldest, but Moshe Rabbeinu was, Moshe Rabbeinu. At least it should say Achei Moshe and Aaron. Why does it only say Achei Aaron? I found this kasha in a footnote in the Eitzah Plois. So he suggests, but he doesn't make a notice to it, but he's suggesting his own pshat different than what it says in the Dazakanim. He suggests that when Amram separated from Yocheved, he married another woman and had Eldad and Medad. That would make sense why it says Achei Aaron, because Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't born yet at the time that they were born. But the problem with that is that why would Amram marry another woman? He was already Mekayim Peri V'Rivia. Why would he marry another woman? So that's a very difficult pshat. There's yet a third pshat in Eldad and Medad. This you could find in the Bir Yonason. The Bir Yonason is a Pirish on the Targum of Yonason ben Uziel. And the Bir Yonason brings it down from a sefer called Genuzais. And in the sefer Genuzais, it says that he saw a Ksav Yad, a manuscript from Rishonim, that after Amram died, that's when Elitzaphan married Yocheved, and that's when they had Eldad and Medad. Now, of course, this takes care of the problem. This takes care of the problem why Amram would separate from Yocheved and marry another woman. It's very interesting pshat. The only thing is it means that Yocheved continued to have children miraculously even after Moshe Rabbeinu was born. That's an amazing thing. Either way, we now know where this humility comes from. Because I remember when, it's now over 30 years ago, when my daughter Yocheved was born, my baby, and we had a kiddush for her, and it was actually the first kiddush in my new shul at Agudas Yisrael of Staten Island. Over 30 years ago, we built the building, and it was the first simcha on Shabbos for sure. And I said that Yocheved is the same letters as Vai Kavod. Woe is honor. Yocheved taught her children the ugliness of honor. And we find that Moshe and Aaron, it says, Gadol ma'ashenema b'Moshe v'Aaron, more than it says by Avram. Avram said, Anochi ofa v'efer. Moshe and Aaron said, Nachnu ma, what are we? So she taught Vai covered, woe to honor. And now we find the same thing by Eldad and Medad. Look what they did. They wouldn't show up to pick their thing in the lottery. They said, we're not worthy of lakach. It's an amazing thing how they ran away from honor. Now, I want to tell you a fascinating postscript on Eldad and Medad. And for that, I have to take you to Gemara in Chagiga Daf Gimel. Before I do that, I want to mention that we are looking for a sponsor for next week's Parsha Shir, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. The Gemara Masechtas Chagiga Daf Gimel tells us, Maisa shahoyu b'shnei ilmen. There were two mutes. Shaya b'shchuna shel Rebbe. They were in the neighborhood of Rebbe, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Ubechol eis sheRebbe hoyu nichnas lebeis HaMidrash. When Rebbe came into the Beis HaMidrash to give shir, they sat there and they were noim v'nodim, shuckling back and forth, u'merachashim b'sifsoiseyem, and they were moving their lips. So when Rebbe saw their diligence, his spal Rebbe aleim, Rebbe prayed for them, sheyuchel ledaber. And when they were able to speak, they were found that they knew lilmoid halachas, safra, sifrei, and all of Shas. That they were incredible Talmidei Chacham. What does this have to do with Eldad and Medad? So on this, the Ramah Mepanai, in his Sefer Gilgulei Neshamas, he writes that these two mutes were Gilgulim of Eldad and Medad. And the Chidah adds on this that that's why the two first letters of Eldad and the two first letters of Medad, Aleph Lamed and Mem Yud, spell Ilmei, mutes. And he says that when Yoshua said, Adoni Moshe Kloim, destroy them, so Kloim is the same letters as Keilaim. They should be rendered like mutes. The Ben Ishchai, the Ben Ishchai says that they had to come back as a tikkun, not to be able to speak initially, because of the fact that they were misnaba, they prophesied in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, who was greater than them. Perhaps they should have consulted. That's why Yeshua said, Adoni Moshe Kloim, and the different pshatim of what Kloim means, put them in a kela, put them into a jail, or give them the tircha de tzibura, and that will finish them off. It's a really scary Rashi. But the Ben Ishchai says that they became mute because they shouldn't have given the prophecy in the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, in the presence of a Navi greater than them. He then says, and that's why their refuah came from Reb Yehuda Hanasi, because Reb Yehuda Hanasi was b'chinas Moshe Rabbeinu, because b'Moshe ad Rebbe there was no one with Torah Gedula b'makam echad like these two amazing individuals. As always, I want to thank you for making the shir possible, and to wish you all, thank you again to the Rubin family, and also I want to tell you that if you haven't checked out recently, I have a shir in Bhaloscha from many years ago from Rabbi Landau Shul on YouTube, and also I just put recently a shir about marriage on YouTube, about marriage and dating. You can check that out as well. Make sure to become, if you listen to me on TorahAnytime.com, make sure to become a follower. And if you listen on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and to hit like. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and have a wonderful Shabbos.